panel for you today. I'd like to welcome our guests, Republican strategist Leslie Shedd and Democratic strategist Haima Moore, joining us for the very latest on Gaza and here in the United States. Thank you both so much for joining us. Leslie, I would like to get your thoughts on this. First, Trump is now expected to visit Israel and Egypt at the weekend as part of his Middle East trip. Do you think this will be something of a victory lap for the president? Leslie, we are unfortunately having some trouble hearing you, or at least I am, so I will just...
I'm so sorry about that.
There we go. Let's try that again. Tell me what you think.
I was going to say, absolutely, this is a victory lap. It should be a victory lap. This is a great day for the people of Gaza, for the people of Israel, and it is all due to President Trump. I don't believe that anyone else could have gotten this done. It was crucial that we get our Arab partners in the region on board, and he has taken the time to develop relationships with them, to build a trust with them, and then he made it clear to both parties that are involved that, hey, get on board or get out of the way. You are going to find a peace. We need a ceasefire. It's absolute. He would not take no for an answer. When somebody said no, he said yes, and it was his persistence that got us here. I think it's great that he's going to be there. I think it helps add a little bit of extra power, influence, and weight for him to go over there and make sure that those hostages get released on Monday or Tuesday.
And we now know the Israeli government has formally signed off on this first phase of the plan. But we should say there is still a long way to go, right? We're not entirely there yet for peace in Gaza. Plenty of details that need to be ironed out. Haima, if this is successful, though, this would be a huge success for Donald Trump's foreign policy, though, wouldn't it?
Look, I sure hope this is successful. This is something we've been dealing with for 2 years, and I think everyone has worked on this. Even when Joe Biden was president, we worked on this. And so I do give President Trump some credit for getting this done, and I hope that it sustains itself. But we can't, we have to be real about this. This is something that we've all worked on and hoped on and prayed about for the last 2 years. And I don't think that Donald Trump needs a victory lap. He needs to be happy that this is happening and that we can find some peace. And I think next, hopefully, he goes to Ukraine and do the same thing there.
Yeah. What do you think this tells us, Leslie, about Trump's vision for foreign policy and negotiating with foreign leaders in general? Because he's presented this plan that is not as heavy on detail as what you might normally see, but it seems to have been enough to at least get these leaders together to agree to do a first phase and then hash out the rest of the details later.
I think that the president cares about peace. He's a peacemaker. This is what he pursues. He understands that when you get down into each individual phase of any type of a peace deal, that there's going to be nitty gritty, that things will change along the way that you will need to be able to adjust to. And I think that being a businessman in New York has taught him that. I think he understands the most crucial thing, that the most important step right now was to get hostages released, get those hostages home to their families and their friends. And that is what this deal achieves. That is what his goal is. And he also understands that he has the influence, he has the relationships. Like I said, he has built that network of trust with all of our partners in the region to actually get this done. And I think he will. People have been underestimating President Trump for quite some time. I have repeatedly said, I think even on this show, that people should not do that. And he's once again proven his detractors wrong, and he's going to get this job done. It's his persistence, 100%.
And Haima, just briefly, I just want to make clear, because foreign policy issues often really fall down partisan lines in the United States. But for our international audience, how are Democrats broadly looking at this deal?
Look, I think broadly Democrats are, look, I said this a second ago. We've all wanted this for a very long time. Nobody asked for October 7th to happen. And since then, I think Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and all Americans have wanted this deal to come to fruition. And so even Democrats are very, very happy that finally we can have some peace. We can stop all the death in Gaza, and Israel can move forward in their national security as well. And so this is going to be really good for the world. And I think regardless of where you stand on political parties or ideology, I think Donald Trump does deserve some credit for being so dogged on this one particular issue. However, when Lindsay mentioned this, that President Trump is a peacemaker, I think if President Trump took the same tenacity that he's had on this issue and bring it to America, and maybe we wouldn't have so many issues in cities like Chicago, D.C., and other cities that he's starting to invade. And so we just hope that Democrats hope that Donald Trump can take this same peacemaking ability and bring it back home as well.
All right. Well, Haima, Leslie, stay with us. We are just going to take a short break. I would love to carry on this conversation when we return. Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News. You're live with BBC News. Me, Claire Richardson, and our panel still with us, Leslie Shedd and Haima Moore. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to talk to you about this indictment against Leticia James. I have it right here in front of me. There are accusations against James that if she's convicted, could carry penalties, including up to 30 years in prison and $1 million fine for each count. What do you make, Haima, of these charges being brought?
For the purposes of this audience, the Attorney General has maintained her innocence throughout this conversation, even before being indicted. But what we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks and couple of months is, one, President Trump say that he wanted her to be indicted. Two, we saw a little peek under the curtain of him instructing the Attorney General of the United States of America to move forward with charges. And then thirdly, we've seen a newly appointed prosecutor by the president just a day or so into this job indict the sitting, duly elected state official from New York, the Attorney General. And so what I think, is happening right now is a bit scary. When you think about a president of the United States of America using his power to bring his political foes down to their knees, that's just really sad. These are things we're looking at that have happened in the past in the world, and they've resulted in catastrophic political ramifications, not just for our country, but for other countries. And so what people are saying, and this is not just Democrats, I'm hearing this from people who are just lay people in the country, what people are saying is, if Donald Trump can marshal that same tenacity to do something good for this country, instead of trying to beat people down and trying to take advantage of his power to punish his enemies or his political foes, if he used that same power to bring more jobs to this country, to lower costs, inflation is still way too high, then I think he will have more people on his side. But this seems very baseless. It seems like he's using his attorney general and his office and his power to just do something that is really personally motivated, and that's really, really sad to see.
Leslie, what do you make of this here? Because I'm curious whether you're concerned that this could set a dangerous precedent for the next time that you have a president who is a Democrat and perhaps going after their political foes.
Well, I think it's important to remember, first of all, I want to correct the record. The prosecutor did not indict her. A prosecutor builds a case. A prosecutor presents that case to a grand jury. But a grand jury of her peers, a grand jury of regular, everyday Americans, are the ones that return that indictment. And what that means now is they believe that there was enough evidence for a case to be brought. Now this case will go to trial, and it will be before more American citizens who are on the jury, for the judge to sit down and determine, now, is there enough to actually convict her of this? So this is the normal.
Just to clarify for an international audience, speaking about the U.S. legal system, the bar for a grand jury to do this is much lower than to actually convict, right?
Correct. It is much lower. So what a grand jury will decide is there enough evidence in order to bring this case, right? Is there enough evidence to where we think, hey, there is an argument to be made that this could be true? Then a judge and a jury, depending upon, how the prosecution and the defense decide that they want the case to proceed, a judge and a jury will then sit down and determine, okay, now, is there enough to actually convict her? So we're in a legal process right now. And I just do want to make it clear, it wasn't the prosecutor that indicted her. It was a grand jury. When it comes to, the idea of political prosecutions, for years and years, President Trump's opponents prosecuted him on a myriad of different charges. They went after his allies. They went after people that worked for him. And during that entire time, we were told over and over and over again, oh, this isn't political, even though, this is his political opponents going after him. And now that the shoe is on the other foot, suddenly, oh, now this is political now. I just think the hypocrisy is rich. It's unfortunate. We need to trust the legal system to do what it's going to do, and this is up to the courts now. The courts will determine whether or not that this is a valid case.
I'm very sorry to have to leave the panel here because we've run out of time. We will see what the courts do in the months to come. Leslie Shedd and Haima Moore, thank you so much for joining us today on BBC News to discuss.